everybody. Jeff Hopper back with Jeffrey Cranford.
Good to see you through the lens today.
Through the lens today, yep. We talked last time about being crucified with Christ. Today we're going to talk about being resurrected with Christ. And we talked about, in the golf sense, this context of injury and how an injury can take someone completely from the game, but sometimes they're allowed to come back. Obviously, Tiger Woods' return more than once, but certainly over the last year, winning, the Tour Championship a fall ago and then Masters in 2019 here. That's a big recovery. The Tour allows for this. They have these medical exemptions that give you time to be restored, don't they?
Yeah, they sure do. And I've known a number of guys who've gone through this whole process, and it's kind of an arduous process because you're coming back a little bit tentative, but you have to make X amount of dollars once you get back, or you lose your status on the tour, and it's a real challenging thing, this medical. Of course, when I think about resurrected careers after a medical, I think even Tiger said the greatest has always been Ben Hogan.
Sure.
After his head-on collision that happened, and he came back and couldn't walk, and of course they didn't have the physical therapy that they have today, and all this. Couldn't even barely get out of bed, and it was just one step at a time. Then eventually, some say he may have played some of his best golf after he came back from injuries, which was just it's kind of unprecedented in all of sports.
Right, in all of sports, it might be the greatest comeback. Yeah, that's always up for argument, but
Sure.
That's what sports bars are for, I guess.
Sure, that's right.
Sit around and argue this stuff. When someone comes back from injury, they have put in a lot of work. You alluded to that, this physical therapy and what they have to do. This kind of goes back to how we talked about, in a worldly sense, we can build our identity. But in Christ, our identity is really given to us. And when we talk about being resurrected with Christ, it's absolutely given to us. A dead person cannot resurrect himself.
Absolutely right.
Yeah, so what does it mean to be resurrected with Christ?
Well, I know you've done the same. I mean, I've baptized hundreds and hundreds of people through the years, and I always will go with them, and we'll meet prior to this, and we'll sit down, and I said, do you understand actually what baptism is? It is a picture of you identifying with Christ, being in the water, and then being resurrected to new life. And I said, we always do it in swimming pools and all that. And I said, you're really leaving your old life behind and being, a new creature that Paul talks about in 2 Corinthians 5. Just you're a new creation in Christ. All old things have passed away. It is not just, hey, I was dead and I bring up the old lousy guy, just, kind of alive now, but I'm still beat up. And it's from a spiritual perspective, you are coming up a new creature. And not only that, not only are you resurrected, Paul takes this analogy one step further in his letter to the Ephesians and says you are now actually resurrected and raised up with him and seated with Christ in heavenly places. So now we have access not to, hey, we're going to go way up into the sky and be on the clouds and play harps, but we are actually seated with Christ in this unseen realm.
Wow.
We are resurrected into a new dimension. I've oftentimes tried to give people a picture. It's like unzipping something and walking through and into another dimension. And that kind of resurrection, it's very exciting. You say, well, it's just your imagination running wild. It's thoroughly biblical, and it's what Jesus came to provide us. And he preached the kingdom of heaven is at hand, but you've got to be resurrected to enter it.
I know it's not some pie-in-the-sky thing because I've heard testimonies.
Yeah, that's for
I've
sure.
heard testimonies of people who say, I was given my life back. My life was a disaster and I was dying.
Over and over.
Yeah.
Over and over. And I'm one of those. And I look at my unresurrected life and the pain and the anguish I caused not only myself, but even more importantly, all those that were around me. And I was a catalyst for pain. And then I'm raised. And in being raised, Jeff, my intentions changed. Where the day before I was intent on my way and I didn't care about the other person, I had a love. I can only describe it as supernatural and a resurrection. And it happened after I got baptized, after I entered into this, this ceremony, which Jesus wasn't that into ceremony. But boy, when that happened, it was a life-transforming moment. And I've seen it happen multiplied hundreds of times over.
Wow. Well, we are a month into this series, and so far we've talked about being created by God, being a believing child of God, being crucified with Christ and being raised with Christ. That's a lot of powerful stuff with regard to who am I, and we have a lot more to go,
Sure do.
and we hope you're with us.